And there we are. Big question today. Do you feel the pressures of maintaining balance between the business demands, your entrepreneurship, and personal well-being? So that's a question that has come up to be on top of mind for so many people. Firstly, let me welcome Carolina Backer. Hello, how are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
Our
Lovely to be
veteran
here.
recovery coach. It is so good to have you here. Now, between Carolina and I, or Carolina actually set it up, did a brilliant survey to see what the topics are that you would like to know more about. And that is exactly the top one for the time being, about balancing life and business. That seems to be you, a lot of people with you have a lot of issues, difficulty to balance that. Carolina, let us start off with telling us how are you balancing? Are you balancing your life and business well?
Well, as you can see, my life is happening around me as we speak. So, so how do I do that? Well, the how, of course, I've been a coach for 15 years. So for me, it's gradual. I worked into it. And now, after all this time, I have found a really good work-life balance. And part of that is that I'm of course, since I have my own business, I can determine that I work from home. Not everybody has that luxury, though. It's in that particular case, in my case, I think it's a little bit easier than for people that work in corporates or that have to go to an office, and that are not in the position to have their cats walk around them in the office and have the kids, let's say, on the other end of the door, and be able to do the laundry or the dishes in between the work that you have while taking a 5-minute break. The question for me would also be, how would you do that if you aren't in a luxury position like I am, right?
I think that's really a big question, because like you, I can work from my home office, private premises here. I can have the times set the way I wish to. If I want to take a moment and walk outside and breathe the fresh air, I can do so. I can set all appointments in such a way that it really feels, for me personally, the balance between running the business and running my life and living my life is well set. And like you said, a lot of people are not feeling that specifically when they have to go out and work in offices or some other ways where they are tied into the restrictions of time frames. And I do also want to compare our discussion around time a little bit back into this feeling of, wow, I don't have time, which is something the clients that I work with, when they write a book, often let themselves hold back by. So I want to bring that in a little bit. But do give us some more insights into that pressure when people are working hard, long hours perhaps, or to times that they can't set themselves. From your experience working with clients in that field, how do you steer them or guide them to overcome this enormous, sometimes, pressure people feel that they have no life?
Well, first, I always look at the person holistically, meaning at the person in their environment, because you as a person are not isolated. You're not a machine. And I read a statement somewhere on Facebook yesterday. You're not a machine. You're a garden, and it rang so true to me. It's like sometimes a garden needs water, sometimes a garden needs sunlight, sometimes it needs more soil, and we are a little bit the same. We don't need the same things every day. Sometimes your body has picked up a virus and it just needs a little bit more sleep or a little bit more vitamins. And sometimes your body needs to relax and just rest. And the same goes for your mind. Sometimes you can have a much better idea of of relaxation, of having more time when you do a 5-minute meditation or even a 1-minute meditation. Sometimes it's breath work, sometimes it's reading a book, and sometimes it's walking outside. So for each and every one of us, it's not if you would, for example, incorporate self-care into your daily life, and you would say, well, I'm going to very fixed in the morning between 7:30 and 8, I'm going to do this half hour of self-care. That doesn't work. I mean, it's better than not having self-care, right? But it doesn't work that way, because sometimes you need self-care in the afternoon. Sometimes you need it in the morning. And so I encourage people to look at their environment, to look at how they are in their environment, and to fit little things in. So not a half an hour in the morning, but maybe 3 minutes in the afternoon. When you anyway, often most people are likely to eat at work, or are likely to have lunch at home, or maybe have lunch outside. I mean, there is you can move your self-care around those moments that you already have, and allowing that to become a moment of where you nourish your body and then also nourish your mind, and combine certain habits so that they are easier to follow through with. Uh, uh, I'm trying to think of an example, but what I can think of is, for example, when you have a coffee in the morning, or a cup of tea, or a glass of water. You can combine that with just taking 3 breaths, just in and out, and consciously, while you wait for the coffee or the tea to prepare, just consciously take a moment to center yourself and to feel your body. And now that's like a 30-second thing, but it can mean the world to your nervous system.
That you just touched on something really interesting, actually, Carolina, because I'm this kind of person who loves structure, and that includes self-care to some extent. And I like to know what I'm doing at what time of the day, and not that I do that all the time. You've just rightly said that it is much better to bring things into your day, into the moments, so that you can overcome any sort of feeling of pressure or stress. But I do like to know the tasks that I want to do today, and I do like to know roughly, the time frame. And so what I'm hearing you say is that that is perhaps okay, as long as we do also integrate the moments where we do breathe a bit deeper, because it doesn't take a lot of time. Do you agree that a structure is a good thing to have?
I think a structure is a good thing to have. And so there's 2 things that you touched upon, I think, and they both have to do with that balance that we talked about. So if there's one thing that you say, the structure, and let's touch on that one first. So the structure is good, and when you start out, it's also next to impossible. Because when you start out, so this is also, you can see this in January. There's a lot of people that say, oh, this January, and you have all these things that you want to do for the new year. This January, I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, and I'm going to be there. And then, well, if you go to the gym more often, and for years, you notice that there's also always a peak in January, and about mid-February, that peak is gone, and the gym is back to normal in terms of how many people there are. And that's because people try to incorporate that full hour into their lives 5 times a week. And their lives haven't moved around it. So this is you in your environment. You may want to, but your environment hasn't adjusted. Your kids haven't gotten used to the fact that suddenly you are at the gym at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of making them a sandwich. And after 2 weeks, as supportive as they are wondering, well, they will pull you a bit, and so your environment starts pulling you and starts asking for their attention back, basically. And so slowly life starts to pressure us into not making that change. And that's habits. And so it's amazing if you can put that half hour of self-care or that hour of self-care into the day in a structured moment. But what is way more important is that you make sure that you keep up with it. And it's way better to have a 5 minutes a day consistent practice that you put in today and that you are still doing in December, than having a 1 hour practice that you do for a month and then step out of because it doesn't fit into the rest of your life.
Yes. So, that is true. Let me just share with you what a couple of comments we've got here. Small wins of self-care throughout the day is indeed a game changer, as one of the comments for navigating those pressures. And I think you've already shared on that, Ben. And then we've got another one here that says structure can be good, but what that person dislikes, Cooper Gates, what he dislikes in that is that when you are piling minute to minute, meeting onto meeting into it, that is when the pressure really starts. Now, I guess in some instances, for some people, that is something they might not be able to avoid. Or are we all always able to avoid pushing things so close together in your experience, Carolina?
With practice, we are able to avoid that. Yes, I have not had a client that I worked with that was eventually not able to avoid it. But realistically, I mean, that's in the very beginning of putting these practices, it can feel like an extra task on top of what you already have. And but there is ways to actually incorporate this within the things that you do. So the 3 deep breaths, of course, you can exaggerate, right? And then everybody sees that you're breathing. But a very simple thing that I would like to give the listener, and that can be incorporated, is when you run meeting to meeting. There's always moments in meetings when people are talking about a subject and you're sort of thinking about other things, right? And that you have a moment that you don't have to pay attention because somebody else is basically drawing all the attention and is telling the story that needs to be told at that moment. And so sitting there, and at that moment, you just put your hands on your belly and you focus on expanding your belly when you breathe in and pulling it back in when you breathe out. Nobody sees that. You just have your hands under the table. You're sitting relaxed. And just that breathing practice puts you back into your body. Because what happens, the stress that we experience, it's in our heads. And of course, it's also it comes in from all directions, but where we keep it is in our heads. It comes in and we store it here. And then that becomes I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that, I should have done, I should do. There's a lot of musts and a lot of what we are telling ourselves. And that all happens in the head, even if it is unconsciously. Because for a lot of people, these thoughts are automatic. And these thoughts are automatic, so automatic that we don't really even notice that we are thinking them. And the funny thing is, if you say, well, how do you combine those 2 things? Just that little exercise with the hands on the belly, that gets you out of the head, into the body. And that's a reset. That's a short reset. 3 breaths while somebody else is talking.
Yeah. So I think, sorry, go on.
So it's about tuning and finding those moments that fit your life that you can do this with, instead of trying to do what everybody else does and say, well, they say that I need to meditate for 5 minutes or that I need to take a break in between meetings. If you don't have a break in between meetings, then you have to work with what you got. And meaning that you have to work with the meetings instead of against them.
Yeah, I totally see this as a proven method, what you've just shared about taking 3 breaths in the middle of a situation, or as you have a moment to yourself, or you make that moment for yourself. I think you can certainly do that even, within a structured approach to your day and to what you are doing. And I think the combination of having that structure, but being also very aware that you can do things other than just follow it totally to the structure that you have, when the moment arises and you're feeling like, wow, this is too much, there's pressure there, I have to do more, or I have to stay focused, or run to the next meeting. So I think that is a really fantastic and very actionable step and tip here from you, to take 3 breaths anytime in between whatever you do, just to get back to yourself, your inner moment of calmness, I guess one could really say, isn't it, in that way? So the overall feeling of being stressed out, or bringing that well-being component into our day, it's really something of high importance, because if we're not aware of that and doing it, this moment of burnout comes very quickly to some people.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Well,
So,
we have to realize that a lot of it's a lot of our stress, it's ours, but we also kind of inherited it. So if you look at, again, the person in their environment, we see other people being stressed. And I remember this from the time that I worked in corporate. It's like everybody is stressed. So you think it is normal, right? You consider when you tell your coworkers, oh, I feel a little bit stressed this week, the usual response is, oh, really? Only this week? I've been stressed for the entire year already. And so it's almost like, oh, it's normal. It's not. It's common. It is common to have stress, but it's not normal. And being in that environment and seeing that everything around you, everybody around you being stressed, being hyper busy, working long hours, it almost makes you feel guilty. Now, that also comes from our history. So if you look at just the history of this generation, the working generation at the moment, if you look at the previous generation, so the people that are retired right now, they worked in a completely different environment. And I feel that we are now in a tipping point where we have learned from our parents, because we've seen our parents work that hard. And we've seen our parents, had much less AI, artificial intelligence, much less machinery to work with. So everything was more a hand type of a manual type of work. You had to, you couldn't compute with a computer today like it's today, like you could 50 years ago. So there was all that. We were still raised with that. And I feel that now there's sort of this tipping point happening where we say, yeah, but now we have all these machines that do 90% of the work for us. So why are we still working like we don't have these machines? And so you can see that another generation is now coming to life, basically saying, but hey, I would really like to see if I can combine all this new goodness and put it into my working life so I can have a better work-life balance. So yeah, we're at a tipping point, I believe.
That's really really good that you can see that you feel that is there, because I think once we have that in top of our mind, that there is a tipping point, that things can be different, that we can change things, and that they already are in the change, it makes it a lot more positive for us in general to move forward. And I think as entrepreneurs, when we take up a business, we decide we go into business and not work for someone any longer, that in itself has already been a big step for many people. So they've already let go of certain restrictions of thinking and being from before. So that is really a good thing and a great starting point to look at if there is a stressful situation within the entrepreneurship, that they are doing too much social media, too many meetings, whatever it is, that it is really a matter of being aware of, even at the beginning, little things, little steps to bring that difference in, to regenerate ourselves throughout the day. And you talked about the 3 breaths. That's a really great one. I hadn't thought of that one. I physically get up and walk out of the room. Taking 3 breaths to me is brilliant, because I don't have to go anywhere, and yet I can go into a state of relaxation very quickly and very easily. And I'm going to take that on board also for clients that I work with, to let go of that frustration when they are typing and writing their book and they think, I can't think of another thought now. Instead of getting frustrated and demotivated, to just sit back and take those breaths. That's excellent. So you've given us some fantastic tips. What other little things did you have on your list of sharing today, Carolina? I'm not wanting to put you on the spot, but I know that you're excellent with those tips that you have ready for us.
Well, what I always say is everything starts with awareness, right? You cannot change what you don't know, or what you don't want to see, or what you can see, because often we want to see it, but it's so close to us that we cannot see it, or it's surrounding us, right? A fish doesn't know that it's in the water. That's basically the thing. So everything starts with awareness. And one of the really big awareness things is just to whenever you feel like uncomfortableness usually comes in the body first. You get a little bit of a knot in your stomach, or your shoulders start to tense, you start to sit like this, or you have a pain in your neck. And so it usually starts in the body first, or it starts with an emotion. You suddenly feel sad, or you suddenly feel angry, or you suddenly feel an emotion. Behind those emotions and behind those physical sensations is a thought. And we have what we call thought distortions. And it's thoughts that our brain generates because it starts to get into survival mode, or it already is in survival mode. Now, when we have stress, our brain goes into survival mode. It wants to get rid of that stress as fast as possible. Now, the brain doesn't really have the brain is not there to make you happy. The brain is there to keep you alive. And so the brain will always go back to its comfort zone. And the comfort zone is not always the comfortable zone. That's something different. So the zone where you're comfortable is not the comfort zone of your body and your brain. So when you feel that you're not comfortable, realize that have some awareness. Think, what is the thought that went right before I started feeling uncomfortable? What is the thought that came up just before I started pulling up my shoulders and sitting, tensing my body and sitting in front of my computer like that? Once you have that thought, realize that it's a survival mechanism. And with that, you can also say, okay, I have the survival mechanism. What can I ask myself that is different? And I call these empowering questions. So when we have a thought distortion, it's very often we have a thought like, why can't I do this? Why am I not understanding this? So we very often have this not, or I should have done that. So we have a must. And just asking yourself an open-ended question like, how can I solve this problem, will kick your brain into a different gear. And in the beginning, it's going to take a little bit, it's like an old machine. You taught it to run in a certain way. And so in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But at some point, if you keep asking yourself those thoughts, like, what can I do today to make this better? What knowledge do I have to put in this situation? What experience can I bring to this meeting? At some point, the brain will start picking up, and it will start thinking, oh, wait, I know these questions. Let me give you an answer. And it will start generating answers for you, which gives you an instant moment of, oh, wait, there is something I can do, and a positivity. That alone, well, and then combine it with the 3 breaths if you have that option. This is all things that happen. And nobody has to see it. You don't have to pause. You don't even have to walk slower to your meeting room to do this for yourself.
Absolutely excellent. Let me recap on what you have shared there. There is so much in it, and the
Sorry, yeah.
We're going so quickly on the timing. I want to recap on that because it's been excellent tips there that you've shared with us. So the pressures of maintaining this balance between business demands and personal well-being, there is a whole range of things really that we can take on board and work on. And the more we use little measures like taking 3 breaths in between, or as we do something else, nobody can see that. It is really, doesn't take a lot of time. It's a very, very wonderful action to be able to take, and it can really make all the difference for us in terms of bringing ourselves back into the moment, taking charge, taking control of what we are doing, and as you said, practicing it, so doing it over and over and asking ourselves these open questions where the mind has to dig in there and think, oh, what is the answer here? What is the solution here? It can really make a difference, certainly over time. Have I left anything out? Have you got some parting thought for us to share as we close on our discussion today, Carolina?
Not at all. Maybe just share that. So I just shared about the empowering questions, and let me show people. I have on my phone, on my startup screen, I have this question, which is, ask yourself, what would I like to think about myself and my business today? And I look at this because I have had it on my phone, I think, for 3 years already. And
Excellent.
it's a wonderful thing.
What was the question? What would I
like? The question is, ask yourself, what would I like to think about myself and my business today?
Love it.
And it starts up your day with all right, if I, it with positivity. So maybe that's the thing. Make a screensaver on your phone and look at it. And I know that it was, for me, it was a very nice for this exercise. Also creating that question and putting it and doing all the technical stuff around it was really nice too. And now it's on my phone for forever.
I encourage everyone who's watching, who's listening, who's watching this later as a replay, listen to this again. I won't type it out. I'll let you listen to it several times so that you really hone in on your listening skills as well. Thank you, Carolina, for chatting with me again today on this topic that came up to be a really important topic for at the survey that we did recently. And we will all come up with some more in not too far off future. Thank you and have a fantastic day.
Have a great day.